What happens when you mix poor security guidelines, bad luck, and in some cases, negligence?
Probably a terrible fate. We're losing Sauco, and today we'll be covering the most gruesome animatronic fires in the world, Part 2.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assumed, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune.
Dracula's Castle, Wildwood. This attraction is without a doubt one of the lost gems of New Jersey. The Nichols family built Castle Dracula in 1977. It was a combination of a walkthrough attraction and a dark boat ride, and was constructed on top of a pre-existing old mill ride that was built in 1919. So the area had two attractions. In the middle part was the dungeon boat ride, and the top level became Castle Dracula. This castle was truly impressive and featured a variety of unique props as well as several animatronics such as pirates, skeletons, and other creatures. It's worth noting that this attraction was built before off-the-shelf animatronics existed, so the Nichols family had to develop them themselves. Another highlight of this attraction was its cast of 30 fright actors, who had the ability to improvise each scare to make every experience unique. Additionally, there was an animatronic Dracula positioned on one of the balconies. The attraction took guests through gothic corridors, where they encountered animated prisoners, ghastly scenes, and the mad scientist laboratory. At the end of the tour, guests had to escape after witnessing an execution. And if that wasn't enough, the adventure continued with the dungeon boat ride. Guests would board Sharon's boat and venture through a dark tunnel, encountering terrifying sights along the way, including graveyards, witches, the Phantom of the Opera, and a thunderous finale with the demon Shamron. There's a rumor that the attraction was built with the assistance of Disney Imagineers who had worked on the Haunted Mansion, but there is no way to confirm this. Unfortunately, Castle Dracula met a tragic end on January 16, 2002, when it succumbed to fire caused by arson. Despite plans for rebuilding, various obstacles hindered the Nichols family, and the majestic castle is now lost forever. The fire, claimed to be accidental, was started by two teenagers who broke into the attraction and used lit torches made from old rags and aerosol cans to help them see through the dark. The torches caught fire to the castle and eventually engulfed it in a matter of minutes. They ran from the castle after they realized that the fire was out of control. The castle and its animatronics were consumed by the fire, and the few things that were saved were taken by visitors as souvenirs. Eventually, the culprits were arrested and put under house arrest. The castle sadly never returned, and currently, the Splash Zone water park stands in its place.
The next two entries on this list are from the same group of animatronics, but come from two completely different incidents. And the name of the band makes everything so ironic. Creative Engineering Warehouse. As you may know, we have talked about creative engineering and the Rock Fire explosion extensively on this channel, but here's the summarized story of this band. In the early 80s, Showbiz collaborated with Aaron Fechter's creative engineering company to create the famous Rock Fire explosion animatronic band. Over time, conflicts arose between Showbiz and creative engineering regarding the rights to the animatronics image and recordings. Showbiz gained control over creative engineering and forced them to leave the company. Showbiz had already acquired Chuck E. Cheese and decided to rebrand all locations under Chuck E. Cheese name, replacing the Rock Fire explosion band with a new show. This new show was Chuck E. Cheese and Munch's Make-Believe Band. Creative Engineering continued selling their show to other restaurants, such as Circus Pizza, Pistol Pete's Pizza, and Billy Bob's Wonderland. However, these establishments gradually closed down, leading to many Rock Fire explosion sets being abandoned and left in despair. Nevertheless, Creative Engineering continued to operate with Aaron Fechter as president and sole employee. Sadly, in 2013, an explosion rocked downtown Orlando. A warehouse on West Jefferson Street was the unfortunate casualty. Firefighters, police, and ambulances arrived at the scene. Tim Roth, a bystander who happened to be nearby, came over to see if he could help or check any injuries. To his surprise, he encountered a site filled with burned animatronics, destroyed arcade machines, and many shattered neon signs. For fortune, there were no injuries, but many animatronics were left in ruins. It is quite ironic that these animatronics belonging to the Rock of Fire explosion had an explosive ending. The explosion happened because a fuel tank filled with Vector's latest experiment, a type of fuel called carbohydrolium, got damaged and burst. After the accident, further development of the fuel was discontinued. Creative engineering shifted efforts to sales and their YouTube channel, but that's nothing compared to the next story. Fnaf's Blast to the Past Museum. We would like to thank Juju from Josterfield for all the help in creating this segment. If you're interested in animatronics, you have to check out their channel. The Rock of Fire explosion, as you know, is one of the most legendary animatronic bands. However, as you saw in the previous segment, and if you have been following the channel, that has been plagued by controversies and unfortunate incidents. It seems like the band carries a burden of trouble with it, from corporate issues to abandoned and even boring animatronics. Many of these animatronics have been rescued and restored, but one of the most incredible collections that faithfully captured the spirit of the 80s was Fnaf's Blast to the Past Museum. This small museum and private collection were filled with 80s memorabilia, including arcade machines, classic movie posters, lights with logos of iconic companies like DeLorean, and even cutouts of 80s stars like Michael J. Fox. In short, this place was like traveling back in time to the 80s. In addition to all of this massive collection included a fully operational stage show of the Rock of Fire explosion in perfect condition. It was a marvelous place to visit, but all of this was gone when a fire started in the museum, tragically changing its course forever. Back in 2010, Snapper was at the museum running the stage show as usual when he suddenly received a call from a friend inviting him to have lunch. Oblivious to the fact that the show was still playing, Snapper had to leave the museum hastily. It was during his absence that the disaster unfolded. Snapper had installed a smoke machine into Fat's tune machine, and it's presumed that this machine was responsible for the fire. But in reality, no one knows for certain. Firefighters indicated that the fire originated in the area where Juju was located and spread through the entire museum. To this day, it remains an unsolved mystery. Many fans believe that some part overheated and fell onto the stage, causing it to catch fire, or that the smoke machine overheated. When Snapper returned, there was little that could be done, as almost everything had been lost. The museum was in ruins, and the animatronics were completely burned. This was not easy for Snapper, to say the least. He salvaged what he could, giving some parts to a local fan, and the majority was sold to Chris Trash, another collector and enthusiast of the Rock of Fire explosion. Currently, Chris holds the semi-restored Snap show. However, he has sold off parts like Duke in the past to contribute to the Rock of Fire bar project in 2019. The museum still remains and is for sale. Let's hope that someday Snapper and Chris can recover their sets and find some relief after this tragic situation.
Tales of the Okefenokee. This attraction is a controversial one, but we have to cover it because its ending was just as controversial. Tales of the Okefenokee was an opening day attraction at Six Flags over Georgia, the second official Six Flags park that opened in 1967. The park opened with several attractions and 6 sections. Each section opened with a main attraction, and Tales of the Okefenokee was one of these main attractions. This ride was inspired by the stories of Uncle Remus and Brer Rabbit, but because of copyright restrictions, the names were not actually used. The original version of the ride had a short lifespan, with very basic animated figures and a very dark atmosphere. And because of the initial negative reception of this ride, Six Flags hired Sid and Marty Krofft to completely redesign the ride. This attraction featured larger, more cartoon-like characters as well as an all-new soundtrack, and it quickly became a fan favorite, where they encountered many animated animals, including Mr. Rabbit, Mr. Fox, and Mr. Bear. They could also see a band of animals playing and a band of parrots singing and urging people to save their rabbit. As the boat continued, guests could see that Mr. Fox and Mr. Bear had captured Mr. Rabbit, but he was eventually saved by the owls. The ride also took a dark turn when guests discovered the evil plans of Mr. Fox and Mr. Bear to destroy the swamp using weapons hidden in a cave. The villains tried to shoot at the boat, but the guests narrowly escaped. But in the end, everything went fine, and guests could see Mr. Rabbit celebrating Christmas with his family. The ride stayed that way for over a decade, but it didn't get many refurbishments during that time. And by the close of the 1980 operating season, Tales of the Okefenokee was in a deteriorating condition, and it was getting worse all the time. But who would have thought that the ride's demise would be the singing carrots? You see, the interior mechanism in one of the Carrot Sisters' figures became stuck, heating up its coil and causing a fire to break out. Since the Carrot Sisters were modeled out of polyethylene foam, the fire spread quickly, destroying the carrots and the background behind them, and even spread over to the nearby scene, with Mr. Fox and Mr. Bear holding Mr. Rabbit in a bag. The fire did spread quickly, but it was also rapidly extinguished before it engulfed the whole ride. The carrots were a total loss, and were replaced by 4 singing watermelons from the end of the ride. But this looks strange, as the 4 watermelons did not even begin to take up the space that had been occupied by the dozen or so carrots. So at this point, Six Flags decided that the Tales of Okefenokee had run its course, and the ride was replaced by the Monster Plantation.
Playland's Castaway Cove. Playland's Castaway is an amusement park with a rich history on the New Jersey coast, entertaining the public for over 60 years. This park features 32 attractions, but the most emblematic feature was its entrance, which had a gigantic ship. Inside the ship was a simple animatronic pirate and his faithful companion, a parrot. These animatronics were beloved by every guest that was able to see them. However, in February 2021, the park experienced a devastating fire. Fortunately, the fire did not cause significant damage to the attractions, but it completely destroyed the fantastic entrance at Playland's Castaway Cove. Inside the entrance, there was also an arcade that was lost in the fire. The smoke from the fire could be seen from as far away as Atlantic City and from the 9th Street Bridge. All the park was filled with smoke. The parks team cleared the debris and reopened the park, but without the iconic entrance. For some time, there were rumors about whether the entrance would be rebuilt. For fortune, the park owners have plans to construct a new 3-story entrance that will even include a dark roller coaster. By 2024, the fire was investigated, and it was determined to be accidental. It was caused by an electrical source near the front of the building. No lives were lost, and the damage did not extend to the rest of the park. Instead, it provided an opportunity for an upgrade to the entrance.
Zozobra. While this entry might not include an actual animatronic, and its burning is not accidental, we could not leave out this fantastic spectacle that is both impressive and interesting. Back in 1924, artist Will Schuster was inspired by the Yaqui people's tradition of burning a Judas effigy to create the first Zozobra burning. The first burning took place in his backyard, as a 6-foot effigy, and over the years, it has grown into a towering 50-foot high puppet. This puppet is made of wood, wire, cotton cloth, and most importantly, it is stuffed with lots of shredded paper. Why is this important? Well, because the whole concept of the burning is to burn away and destroy the worries and troubles of the previous year in the flames. So the papers usually include obsolete police reports, paid-off mortgages, and even divorce papers. People can also write down the nature of their gloom on a slip of paper and leave it in the gloom box so it can be added to the stuffing of the monster. Zozobra is a dark and eerie character, part ghost and part monster, and its name means anxiety in Spanish. Schuster personally oversaw the construction of the Zozobra figure until 1964, when he gave his detailed model and an archive of drawings and scripts to the Kiwanis Club of Santa Fe, so they could continue this tradition. The event in itself is fantastic. Zozobra is supposed to be the enemy of all that is good. As legend has it, he casts a spell of darkness and despair over Santa Fe each year, and is burned from the bad deeds of everyday people. The goal is to lure this evil guy out in the light of day, so his mortal enemy, the fire spirit, can burn him to the ground. So, once nightfall arrives, fire dancers come out to perform. A fire spirit dancer also comes out, dressed in red with a headdress and carrying 2 flaming torches. There are also children dressed in white called glooms, and the fire dancer's role is to scare away the glooms, symbolizing the light that dispels the darkness and negativity of the year. As the dancers perform on stage, Zozobra's arms and head move, and he emits groans. After the dance, the marionette is set on fire with attached fireworks. Once the puppet collapses, more fireworks are set off. This is a fantastic event, where people can usher in happiness and optimism, which will last until the following year. This festival also served as inspiration for the Burning Man creators after they experienced it in the early 1980s. Six Flags Haunted Castle. Six Flags Great Adventure, located in Jackson Township, New Jersey, is a beloved amusement park known for its thrilling rides and immersive attractions. One of these attractions was the Haunted Castle. This attraction was built back in 1979 as a way of having a spooky attraction that would scare anyone brave enough to want to experience it. When it was first built, the attraction was supposed to be open at night only, but due to the popularity of it, the park decided to keep it open during the whole day. The attraction was built as a crooked medieval castle, and inside, guests would go through a series of narrow and dimly lit corridors where scare actors would come out to frighten them. There were also several special effects, animatronics, recorded sounds, and vignettes of famous and infamous characters and events from movies. The attraction was very popular among guests, but sadly, on the evening of May 11, 1984, it was struck by a devastating fire that forever changed its history. The fire started when a visitor of the haunted castle used a lighter to illuminate his surroundings. The lighter caught a foam padding on the wall, and the fire quickly spread throughout the structure because the interior was constructed with wood partitions, plywood, and foam padding on the walls. Furthermore, as the fire quickly spread, panic ensued among the almost 30 guests who were inside at the time. The confined and confusing layout of the haunted castle made it difficult for them to find a swift and safe escape. Emergency services responded promptly to the scene, but the ferocity of the fire made it difficult for them to get it under control quickly. Despite all of their efforts, the attraction was completely destroyed. The real tragedy in all of this is that 8 lives were lost during the accident. There were also several people that had to be taken to the hospital for injuries. This fire exposed many safety deficiencies in the attraction. This was because the attraction was supposed to be temporary, so at the time it didn't need to follow the strict building codes that were mandatory for permanent buildings. In fact, the haunted castle did not have smoke alarms or a sprinkler system at the time of the accident. Legal proceedings absorbed the park and its parent company, shifting accountability to the officials overseeing the attraction's operation. After the fire, Six Flags began updating the park with new sprinkler systems, smoke and heat detectors, emergency generators, and an in-house fire brigade. Today, the physical remnants of the haunted castle have disappeared, replaced by new attractions within Six Flags Great Adventure. Yet, the legacy of the fire served as a solemn reminder to park visitors, legislators, and fire safety officials about the paramount importance of prioritizing the well-being and protection of all guests who come to enjoy the wonders and thrills of amusement parks.
That will be all for today, but be sure to subscribe and leave a comment.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed.
Welcome to the secret segment. We have received thousands of comments about William Afton and Springtrap, so in this secret section, we will talk about one of the most famous fire animatronics, even though it's fictional. To understand why these fires happen, we need to know about William Afton's story. He and his partner Henry Emily started Freddy Fazbear's, a big business that began with a small restaurant called Fazbear's Family Diner. This diner has 2 main animatronics, Freddy and Bonnie, with special suits called springload suits that could be worn by people. But these suits had a dangerous flaw. Moving the parts could be risky, and if they didn't work right, the wearer could get crushed. And William Afton used this flaw for evil. Afton used the Spring Bunny suit to trick and harm innocent children, which became known as the Missing Children Incident. As the murder continued, Afton, also known as the Purple Guy, realized that the spirits of his victims haunted the animatronics he controlled. Afton wanted to get rid of the haunted animatronics, so he went to a secret room in a restaurant where the tormented souls confronted him. He tried to hide from them by wearing the Spring Bunny suit again, but something terrible happened. The restaurant was falling apart, and water leaked from the ceiling without Afton knowing. When he entered the suit, the combination of water and broken parts caused the suit to crush him. This created Springtrap, a mix of Afton's body and his spirit, haunting the animatronics forever torment. The secret rooms where these scary events happened were closed off, keeping the horrors hidden. But Springtrap's story didn't end there. he came back as a scrap trap, determined to hunt Michael, his son, and the children at the pizzeria. But eventually, all the animatronics, including a scrap trap, were burned, and the trapped spirits were set free. As a scrap trap burned, William Afton's soul faced eternal punishment for his terrible deeds. In his final moments, Henry said a chilling goodbye to Afton, warning him of the terrible fate waiting for him. With those words, Afton's soul was condemned to his own self-made hell, tormented by the animatronics he helped create and the spirits he harmed, a tragic end to his evil ways. This is the story of William Afton, a man consumed by darkness. His legacy reminds us of the consequences of being evil. This video was possible because of you, so leave a comment with your video suggestions. See you soon.